Welcome to our podcast, Becoming an Elite Financial Advisor. I'm Sten Morgan, here with my buddy Andy Traub. And today we're going to dive into the ideal first year in our career.
It's known to be, and we did some research on this, 80 to 90% of advisors are gone within 3 years. And I would submit, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, that has just become accepted. I mean, I think there's people that are trying to make it better, but not like 50%. It's like, how can we sort of incrementally? So let me just ask you, is there a way to change that? Is that just the way it is?
I entered the business through one of those channels, the big insurance broker-dealer, recruited a lot of people. The hope was, if we get 2 studs out of every 10, we're winning. And I remember questioning that, and then I meet a lot of people that are at those firms. I'm like, these are smart people running these firms. Like, the numbers must make sense. Yeah. Like or they'd be out of business at this point. So maybe at a certain scale, that's just required. Just more volume, the better. Yeah. As I've worked with smaller practices and even my practice, I've discovered there's a path you can pave and a way to attract, scrub potential candidates. Yeah. It'll save you a lot of time and money.
I just think about that. Obviously, on a larger scale, you can maybe afford that. Mm-hmm. Literally, you can afford that. I just think if, as legacy, as we're sitting in, our offices, like if you only, I mean, if you had to go through 9 Chris's to get to Chris, who is working with us now, like, how much pain and expense and like how frustrating that would be.
I would just stop. I think at some point I'd be like, okay, I'm going to have 2 or 3 staff members and I'm just going to maintain, like, because it is emotional, it's draining, training somebody that then leaves. Like, that is just like this, it could cause me to lose the love of the business, the practice, and it would just stall me out.
Right.
Because when I have rushed to hire, maybe didn't hold that person to as high of a standard through the interview process or in the first, say, 90 to 180 days. Yeah. It throws everything off. It takes me away from my superpowers, distracts the rest of the team. And I know a lot of advisors, and today, we're speaking to first or second year advisors. We're talking to people that recruit and lead young advisors. We're talking if you own your own small firm and you're trying to attract these kind of people. Right. This is something, it should be on your radar because it's costly, not just in the money, but your time and energy.
Yeah. It can be very, very, very discouraging to invest in someone and then they don't pan out. So one of the things we're going to do this next section is we're going to talk about questions you can ask that I don't think they're weird. They're not like what kitchen whatever would you be? Do you ever hear about this?
No.
I'd be a blender. Why? Like there's like these weird questions in it. We're not going to do it. We're not going that far out to the outfield.
But I will say we also tell people that they need these people in order to have an elite practice.
Yeah. So the reason we're covering this is because we believe that you have to be raising up people. And you don't have to go through 9 of them to get to the right one in order to grow your practice and stay in your superpower, right? To exist in that. So first, let's talk about maybe some interview questions because as early on as possible, you want to try to figure out in that process, does this person have grit? Does this person have a track record of success? And obviously it's going to be in other areas because they haven't maybe been in that job before, but do they know themselves? We talk a lot about that on our show and with our communities is self-awareness. Oh, yeah. And that's not just I'm great at everything because then I'd say, well, you're not fully self-aware then because there's no way you're good at everything. But do you know what your weaknesses are? And if they're aware of those, that's good. And then how can you help them either develop those so they're not as weak, or they go, yeah, that's okay if you're weak at that because we're going to hire someone to come around you in that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm talking to a 21, 22-year-old, I would be okay with them saying, there's just a lot I don't know. Like, I don't think I have awareness. I think I do, but I'm pretty sure I don't. Yeah. That's a great place to start.
Yeah. It's awareness of your ignorance it's actually, it's like, yeah, thank you for admitting that versus, I'm good. I'm like, oh boy, you are not
Which
good.
was Sten coming out of college, and this particular firm recruits athletes. And it's like, I think you can look at someone's background, ask them some questions, say, okay, they've overcome challenges, and we'll talk through some of these other questions. But, if humility was a prerequisite, I would not have been hired for that internship.
Well, and I think it also, and we'll probably have some other shows about this. We probably won't go too deep into this, but it's also sometimes I think that you do want humility, but also there's sometimes people would say, I don't want humility. I want people who are just like, I'm the man, I'm the woman, I will come in here and dominate. You know what I mean? It's... There's something to be said for I'm awesome. You know what I mean?
If the choices were timid or slightly annoying and overly aggressive, who are you going to pick to be on the dodgeball team? You'd probably go for the ones like, we'll try to tone that person down as opposed to try to like rev this person up. So all of that is real, but the position's important too. Like if I was hiring a paraplanner and they were coming in here saying, I'm going to start my own firm, I want to recruit a bunch of people, like I'd be like, awesome, but that's not what we're hiring.
This is huge. Make sure you're hiring people and that they want to be in the position that they are being hired for. Like there is something about someone having aspirations. For instance, I'm going to come in as a paraplanner and eventually I'd like to be an advisor. But I understand it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to kind of learn the ropes. And okay, that's different than like, man, I want to be an advisor as soon as possible. And you're like, well, I need someone to do planning for me, not to be another advisor. And so that's not a good fit, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about some of these just interview questions that you could potentially use. So what's the last challenge you've had to overcome that you're proud of? And again, I like these sort of, because they could be, you know what? I didn't know how to change the brakes on my car, and I figured it out. And I thought, I'm not a very technical person, but that to me is like, wow, like that person figured out something that most people would be like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
And they're probably not wasteful with their money because they're like, I wanted to figure that out. What are the last 3 books you've read and or listened to, and what did they teach you?
Nice.
I know you love to read. I'm listening to more books, but I also think that it's not just what are the books, but what have they taught you? Meaning, like it's about retention. You know.
I have my wife's young cousin. They're a big age gap, but he's in college now, and I've consistently kind of fed him.
You told me about
books,
him.
I love hanging out with him. He's hungry enough. He's an athlete, but you can still tell there's kind of like I don't even know what to do next.
Yeah,
like I kind of want to, and I'm just going to kind of hang out and slowly learn. And so I push him a little bit, and there's a tendency, and I remember being this way, that you read a book and you could just repeat back to somebody what you just read.
Okay. I
don't know if you remember doing book reports and you essentially just like summarize.
My kids are doing book reports. It's
and I can just imagine the teachers getting so frustrating because they're like, you just summarize, like, what did you learn and why was it important? Like all these deeper layer questions. And so out of these books, like Who Not How, when I had him read that, I'd say, okay, what was the main 3 points you took away from it? And like, how could you apply those soon? And so like, I think there's just a deeper understanding, application of knowledge. That stuff's really important.
Yeah, I love that. What are things you do to manage your time well? Now, there's a few nuances to this question. One is saying it's communicating you're responsible for your time management. Don't be a victim, and also it's an assumption. It's an assumptive question. It's assuming that you are doing things to manage your time well, right? And if they're like, nothing, like, okay, well, that's bad.
You know what I mean? Or that's good to know about them. Because you're going to ask, because that'll be a problem. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, but I would think if they're like, oh, well, I make sure that I have a recurring calendar thing for whatever. Like, okay. I mean, just you want to see, are they managing their life well before they come and try to manage a business? Because really, they're going to own their own small business inside of your business, right? What's the last problem you solved? I think that understanding that it's okay to come up against problems. It could be a relational one. It could be my neighbor's crazy and is always yelling at me, and I had to figure out how to win them over. Whatever it is. But these are questions I like the open ended because I feel like there's no way they could prepare for these. They just have to like be doing life and be doing life well.
I wish when I look back, and I couldn't have had this perspective just magically, but now being a business owner and interviewing and what am I really looking for? It's not like a unicorn that's solved every problem, that has every skill set. Like I'm expecting to train them. And a lot of business owners I talk to prefer to have more of a clean slate.
Interesting.
But there are these core things you're trying to uncover.
Yeah.
Problem solving, self-awareness. And if you can slow your hiring process down a little bit, to discover these things, that doesn't mean, there's going to be some things that are just go, no go, where you're like, this is going to require too much effort. I don't have the time for that. But what we'll talk about in a little bit is like, okay, now what path are you setting them on as a result of what you've discovered?
Right.
To push them to overcome whatever shortfalls or blind spots they may have, because every hire, especially at 22, they'll have some. They haven't figured it out, or they're going to be running their own business already.
Right.
And so hopefully the heart is like, I'm bringing somebody in, we have a system to train them, to challenge them, but also as a business owner, I have to discern as best I can as soon as I can, so I'm not wasting time.
Yeah. Not wasting their time either. I mean, you're not going to bring someone on that's not going to be a good fit because you don't want it and they don't want that. I think this one is interesting. Tell me a recent situation where you went out of your way to be kind or to serve someone. It could be someone in your own family. It could be, I stopped by the side of the road and helped this lady change her tire. I mean, it could be whatever. But I think that, again, you're looking for people that have some measure of character, that it's part of who they are. They're not doing it because they're getting paid.
Yep.
They're doing it because they're good people.
Yep.
Right.
And there's people listening that are probably compensated based on frequency of recruiting, which means it's the metric of them staying is not as important sometimes as like we have to have enough advisors in the office.
Yeah.
And so I understand there's competing KPIs potentially. I would encourage you, and this is the same thing with advisors finding clients, if you're getting to the point where you're trying to patchwork something because you have a scarcity mentality of potential prospects, they're out there. So the question shouldn't be, how do I water down my questions or my hiring process or the first 90-day gauntlet I put them through? It should be, for some reason, I'm not finding those people. So I would challenge you to hold true to a creative, challenging onboarding interview process. And if you don't feel like you're hitting the numbers or finding the people, like that's the question you'd be trying to figure out. It's like, where are these people?
And I also think that, people who like their interviews, people who like where they work, tell other people that. And so it's another way of be attractive. Have an attractive interview and hiring and onboarding process. So they say, this is a good place to work. They are taking good care of me. They ask, it was a really good interview. I really liked it. It was, it was more conversational. I didn't feel nervous.
Yep.
They wanted to know who I was as a person, not just my GPA.
That's right.
Right. Because really, who cares?
And how many people do I have in my immediate warm market to start calling tomorrow?
But that is also helpful.
That is also helpful.
The last thing I had written down was, what's something you need to get better at to succeed in this position? Again, awareness. I have shortcomings, and also awareness of what do you think you're going to have to do in this business?
Yep.
And again, they don't know a ton about the position, but they should know enough to say, as far as I understand, I'm going to be doing this, and hopefully they would say, I think I just need to know the products better, or I need to know, like, because they don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, thank you for saying you don't know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what year one can look like if you design it differently. One of the things that you're big on is trying to learn from multiple advisors, that sometimes it can be a curse sitting at one desk over the other because you're next to someone that maybe you don't want to model your career after.
Yeah, the first couple firms or offices I landed in, there are people I liked, but not many people I looked and said, I want to have their business.
Right.
Like I want to model my practice after them. And so the reps of seeing multiple people kind of, for me, exposed what I don't want and gave me kind of a fire to try to find other advisors outside of my firm to interview and talk to. But awareness will not come with, this is all I know. I'm just going to become a product of what I was plopped next to.
Yeah.
As more of I'm being tossed around by the waves, versus like, no, I have control over how quickly can I gain perspective, because I know there's things I don't know. The sooner I figure those things out, the better off I'll be. And I'm going to take ownership and try to figure that out.
I've heard of, athletes that get picked up and they're kind of older and they'll be on a team and they're like, he's a locker room guy, meaning they're there just because they have this experience that younger people are going to get better because they're just around the veteran. And I think that as someone who's either in charge of, recruiting new people or someone who's new, like, there is so much wisdom in those veterans.
Oh, yeah.
That if you can just be in the room with them, say, I will take copious notes for you. I will, and whatever they need, you will do that thing for them. Because you want to be in the same room as those people. Which
is a tough ask. If you're a senior advisor in a firm and you've built your practice and done this, and then somebody comes to you and says, hey, will you train the young people for me that I'm incentivized to do well?
Yeah.
There's probably some people out there that'll just help for the goodness of their heart. but they probably don't have the time to train all the young people. And
Sure.
So what system is in place for that young advisor to get experience, but you're not going to this senior advisor and saying, hey, give me a bunch of your time and energy for free?
Yeah.
So there's definitely some problems to solve or obstacles to overcome in that. But there's so many resources out there that you can expose them to other things, whether it's a community of advisors, whether it's courses online, like exposure to increase awareness.
Yeah.
And the hope is as quickly as possible, these advisors can say, oh, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like I thought this is what the business was, but now here's what it is.
Yeah.
The longer they don't have that awareness, the higher the probability is they're someday going to be like, no, this isn't for me.
And it's going to, we see it happening. It happens very, very quickly where people just go, I'm out. I mean, they hit eject so early.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be very discouraging if you just looked around and all you saw were people like you sort of flailing around.
That's right.
Versus, being around someone who's like, no, I'm slow and steady, been here for a while, you can do this. Mm-hmm. Keep it'll be all right. Hold on.
Yep.
It's going to be tough for a while. It's like, it's like a preschool classroom and there's no teacher. You're like, this is bad.
That's right.
And it's funny, but like that can be what some people's first year is like. It's like, hey, I'm going to put you with a bunch of other first year people. Like none of you know what you're doing.
That's right. And what happens, and I've seen this before, like they can start pairing up, like somehow combined, they have a higher probability of doing better. And it's tough to watch. And I've sat back in firms doing my thing and I've offered to help. And at times I've gone to the leadership without even being asked and said, hey, do you want me to help? I'm over, like realizing there's some system at play here that just is not thriving, and it's probably going to continue to be average. But for firms that want to say, I want to be elite, because there are firms out there that are great recruiters, great developers. Like this isn't a problem that hasn't been solved. It's been solved. It's just, are the people willing to think differently and approach it differently?
Right. So again, if what your value is you're in your ideas, it's how can you get smarter faster? How can you become elite, which is not to just sort of hold on and do the minimum for 10 years. It's accelerate that faster.
And I call that the gauntlet. When Chris started, I was like, you're going to have your CFP in less than a year. I think I might even said 6 months. But it was a lot. Freaked him out a little bit.
Yeah.
I set him up in a way where that was possible, but it was still a stretch. Like he wasn't going to do it just by kind of wandering in and out of the office on his own schedule. It was like, that's stressful. He's studying at night, studying on the weekends. So don't be scared of a hiring process that's creative. I know in the past we've tried to hire people for, and we're like, hey, here's the answer to a question. Video yourself answering it, send it to us. It's amazing how many people didn't do it. So we just knocked out half the applications there. Some people did it. Others, you get to see how they speak. Are they confident? Like, do not put yourself in a box of fill this thing out, take this, this placement exam test that tells me some things, or a disc. Come in here, we'll talk for a little bit, and as long as there's no huge red flags, you're hired.
Right.
And I think that's how a lot of people are hiring in this business.
So you need to experience as many styles as you can in your first year. You need to increase your value through study and exposure to others. Building habits that produce. And then I think also, let's talk about the habits one. Mm-hmm. How can you instill in someone that's younger, as an early advisor, can you do habits that produce? I mean, the first thing I think of is just they say, make a bunch of phone calls. Mm-hmm. What are the other kind of habits that will produce good outcomes throughout your career?
As I look with some of the young advisors I've helped, their ability to track results versus effort. Because sooner they'll realize, like, why am I doing all this? I see somebody else getting better results faster with what appears to be less work. And so if you can help them self-check faster, the goal is not to make a bunch of random dials. Cold calling probably has the lowest hit rate in our business for good clients. So why do you have to do that? Well, you don't. It's the easiest thing to start doing without any thought. But there's other ways to attract people. And, within the Lead Advisor Network, we train a lot of our advisors that the ideas are the value. And I was talking to Kitsis the other day, and he said, if your product is what is between your ears,
you need to get better. You need to get better product.
Yeah. What does your shelf look like? Like, are your shelves bare, or are they overflowing with great ideas and things? And I've said this for so long. I don't care if you're 22, 30, 50. If you have solutions that'll help people, you have a shot at that client. But if you're randomly cold calling and no one knows anything about you, you're hoping to randomly get the person, which I don't know many people like this, that'll hold and take that call, talk to you about their money, they don't know you, and agree to meet with you. Like, they're either desperate or like, and I just didn't want to build a business off of like these little unicorn moments.
Yeah.
I wanted to manufacture success.
There is a challenge internally of just belief, but I think that knowledge, a deep, profound knowledge and a study will create confidence. Mm-hmm. But a lot of advisors need to recognize that if you want great people, you have to attract great people. Mm-hmm. And that is by just becoming a better product, and that's a better you.
That's right.
One of the last things, and I think this is unique to the way that you've onboarded your folks, is they don't have to sell to survive. I think that this is really, really difficult. And again, this is the way that a lot of the industry is built. But the idea that we don't have time for you to learn, we don't have time for you to sort of get embedded to our systems or sit in the room and take notes or even do your CFP, like you need to sell now.
That's right.
So what is the balance between, you do need to sell, because if you don't sell, you can't be in the business, whether it's selling planning or selling a product.
Yep.
But what is the balance of not having to live off of only what you sell in the first year, so that you have some time to do that, learning from others or just learning for yourself?
No matter what you're bringing to the table, you have something to offer to somebody. And I know for me, I think I was paid $35,000 my first year to just work, prepare meeting reports for a senior advisor, to sit in on meetings and take notes, to do trading, all these things. I was like, I need to figure this out anyways. I'm either going to do it with my one meeting a week for a while as I get going, or I can help somebody else do it and get 10 reps a week.
Yeah.
And so could I have made more by going and selling stuff I kind of understood to people that maybe needed it? I could have. But for me, the 2 years I spent kind of refining myself then just unleashed me when I started my own practice and was able to do other things. So we believe in kind of a 2-year track for a new advisor.
And let's end with this. What does a track look like for a new advisor, and just lay that out for us?
So year one, you're just in the trenches. We're prepping reports, sitting in on meetings. Like, you just need to see how practices run. What does a day-to-day look like? What are the services we offer? I need to be studying on the side. Like, you are a student of the game at that point. In year two, you should be getting some, maybe you're speaking in a meeting periodically. Maybe you're presenting something. Maybe you're sitting in on a Zoom and get to chime in. At the end of year two, I would give these advisors a choice of, would you prefer to stay internal in the business, either paraplanner or junior advisor, or do you want to step out and start having your own clients? If so, if they've got to that point, like with Chris now, a certain degree of client, I pass to him.
Sure. And
he runs it fully. So there is a track there. If you are a senior advisor and you're saying, I'm having capacity issues, there are plenty of people out there looking for an on-ramp into this business that's not being pushed into the deep end just to sell a bunch of stuff. You just have to figure out, what does this track look like? And am I ready to invest in somebody knowing that there's a chance it pays off in a big way, or I might have to find a couple people? It's draining, it's hard, but well worth it.
Yeah. I think that if the industry could have that 18 to 24 month on-ramp for people where they could really go, I'm going to learn the systems, then I'm going to really sell. Yeah. I mean, I think it just
doctors don't just get to jump right in, right?
And again, I don't want to be too harsh, but it seems to me problematic that you would have to right out of the gate sell things that frankly you don't fully understand. Mm-hmm. And that your diagnosis isn't that great. Again, it's sort of a early, what do they say? What do you call a doctor who gets a D in med school? Doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? You want somebody who's like taking the time to go through and actually do well.
Yep.
And I think it's a disservice when it's like, you're an advisor. Why? I don't know, just because I'm an advisor. No, like, get better at those ideas. Mm-hmm. So whether you're in your first year or two, whether you are involved with a company that is onboarding folks, we want to be a service to you. So continue to reach out to us, and we want to be a practical help to you. And Sten, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, brother.
Well, thank you for listening to today's episode. Would you take just a minute and share this episode with someone that you think would benefit from hearing it? We have a passion to improve this industry, and that starts with how advisors are onboarded and supported in their first few years. And if you're not already subscribed to our show, just a reminder that we release episodes every week, and they're always practical and to the point. In addition, if you haven't left a review of the show, we're sending out a free copy of Sten's book to anyone that leaves a review, in the month of January of 2023. So leave a review, then send a screenshot of your posted review to me, Andy at eadvisornetwork.com. Also include your mailing address and we'll send you out a copy of the book. On behalf of Sten and myself, thanks for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself and that life's too short to choose the average path. Choose the elite one. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you.